Hey loves, tonight we're going to talk about, seriously, one of the worst nights of my life. And you would think that it would have something to do with my crazy ex-husband or the night I was raped or something like that. Oh no, it gets worse. So my daughter was put in the hospital because she was having trouble breathing, and we later on found out that it was side effects from the Botox injections. But at the time, we did not know that. And she was getting Botox injections in her arms and in her legs for her like muscle tightness and things like that. And we had a really great doctor. I loved her so much. She was just so amazing and so amazing with all my kids. And I don't blame her because, you know, David and I have talked about it, and she didn't invent the Botox. And at the time, it was really, really working. I mean, I was able to shower her better, get her dressed easier, things like that. So we were just running with it. And she started having these upper respiratory attacks. So we took her into the emergency room because this attack came on really quickly and was lasting longer than the other ones had. We got her to the emergency room and they intubated her right away, gave her a paralytic, and then, you know, put a tube down her throat to breathe for her. Then got her transferred to the ICU unit upstairs. And then they took us into a family room. And, you know, I was worried that I might get emotional telling this story, but I'm not worried about that now because even just starting to talk about it makes me so freaking mad. And I want to tell you guys about it because I want to know what you guys would have done in this situation, because I didn't really know what to do. I've never, ever been backed into a corner the way I was this night. And so they get her transferred up to ICU, and they're telling us that she has less than 24 to 48 hours to live. And for her they call us into this, what they call a family room or whatever. There was a psychologist in there, a few doctors, couple other idiots, I don't know, and me and David sitting at the table. And this is at Texas Children's Hospital, and that's in downtown Houston. And normally I would not use the name of the place, but this was just so bad. And if I can save one set of parents from what they almost put us through, then it is worth it. So Texas Children's Hospital, you're going down tonight. And we went into this room, and they sit us down at the table, and they're telling us, less than 48 hours, and here's cast moldings of her hands and feet, and here's some counseling services, whatever. And then proceed to tell me that they can give her, instead of waiting on her to pass naturally, that they could give her a little bit of extra medication and she would just go to sleep. So I looked at them and I said, so basically you want to euthanize her? And they looked at me and said, ma'am, we're not allowed to use that term. And I said, for lack of a better term, you want to euthanize my child? And then they looked at me and said, ma'am, in some countries, you don't have a choice. It's a good thing we don't live in those other countries, first of all. And then I flipped out. Like, I think I threw some things, and I know I cussed people out, and I just took off walking. I always say that if David hadn't chased me down to the elevator, that I'd still be walking to this day. That's how upset I was, and just furious with them and feeling lost or whatever. Well, 48 hours came and went, and it was the most stressful 48 hours of my life. I mean, you can imagine, I'm worried, any second now she's going to go. And I'm also worried that they're going to give her those extra medications while I'm not looking, without my permission. I was so paranoid about that. I was afraid to leave her side. I had Christina there with me, and I'm like, you need to check every syringe, the colors and everything else. And if it doesn't look like something she normally gets, do not let them give it to her. So after 48 hours passed and she's in ICU and she hadn't passed away, they shipped her up to the 7th floor. They took her intubation tube out and didn't even switch her over to a BiPAP or anything. They really weren't even feeding her anything other than IV fluids. If she doesn't have, nutrition, how she's supposed to have the strength to fight. They didn't give her any preventative meds to help with her breathing. We had been given meds by the doctor to help with those breathing attacks and such. And they didn't give her any preventative meds before they moved her from that floor to the 7th floor. And when you're hours away from dying, that's a big deal to be moved from one floor to another and switch stretchers and all this stuff. So we are up there in that room, and she is struggling to breathe. She is dying right in front of us. And the one thing they always promised me was that she would be kept comfortable. And she was obviously not comfortable, and I was screaming at the nurses. I'm like, where are her meds? You need to give her the meds. And at the hospitals, you're not allowed to give your own meds. You have to use their meds. And, they're like, oh, we're waiting on the pharmacy or whatever. And I'm like, why are you just standing here? You should look at her, do something. And they're looking at us like, what do you want us to do? What do I want you to do, Texas Children's? I want you to save my kid. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be one of the top hospitals in the world. And this is how you're treating me, and this is how you're treating my kid. With any other kid, cancer kids, any other kid, it is a great hospital. Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful hospital. They have a lot of good things going on for kids. They've got their own radio station, for crying out loud. They got their Ronald McDonald House. We stayed there. My mom stayed there when Miriam was there, and it was free. But when you have a child in Miriam's condition, they are very quick to want to sweep them under the rug. And this doctor, I will never forget his name, Mr. Matthew Music, or Dr. Matthew Music, if you want to call that douchebag a doctor, trying to convince me to euthanize my kid. And I didn't. And she made it. We left that hospital that day, or the next morning. They came in. We finally got her calmed down. I had to have my mom break into my house and get her medications and bring them up to the hospital. And we were actually able to administer meds before they even came up there with them. And then I just told them to stay the fuck away from my kid. The next morning, they literally kicked us out of the hospital, asked me if I had an oxygen tank, and expected us to take her home in my truck. My child that was being sent home on hospice care from the hospital is supposed to be taken home in the back of my Suburban. So I told her, I don't have an oxygen tank. I'm sure that the ambulance, when it comes to pick her up, will have an oxygen tank. And she's like, oh, you need an ambulance. It was just really, really crazy. And in that room, watching her struggle, like, I wanted to call 911, but I was already in the hospital. I'm here. Like, the only thing that I kept thinking was, take her on that bed to the elevator and get her down to the emergency room, and hopefully they will do something for her. But even then, I didn't have that option. David was screaming. The cops or hospital police or security, whatever, was already up there. And we were getting rowdy, but my kid was literally dying in front of me. And Texas Children's Hospital wasn't doing shit about it. So that was it. That was crazy. And I almost threw a fit about them discharging her because I was very scared. And David was like, no, because you're scared either way. You're scared that they're going to give her the wrong medications. You're scared that, they're going to try to kill her when you're not looking. So we can take better care of her at home than we can here. And we decided together to bring her home. And it was the best decision that we ever made. And to this day, we haven't had any of those attacks whatsoever. And but we're no longer doing the Botox injections. And we pray a lot. And I think, I just thank God every day for every second that we have with her. And I sent Dr. Music, Matthew Music, a picture of her. We took a trip to Morgan's Wonderland, and she was on the Ferris wheel, and she had the biggest smile on her face. And I did hunt him down like a little teenage girl on Facebook. And I sent him the picture with a message, just telling him, if I would have listened to you, then we would have missed out on this day and so many others. And I hope you sleep well at night knowing what you put other families through. And there are so many families that go in there. And we're in Texas, so there are so many people around here that cannot speak English. And it was hard for me to understand what they were trying to explain to me. So I can't imagine how many families they have talked into doing this, that that don't understand English, and that this was explained to them by an interpreter or something like that. And then all of a sudden, the next thing they know, their kid is gone because it wasn't explained very well, because it sure as shit wasn't explained very well to me. And then even when I'm calling them out on their shit, they're dancing around it. Like, what the fuck is that? So it was just a really crazy night. And I'd like to know, like, what you guys would have done. What would you have done differently? Would you have called 911? Would you have just carried her down to the emergency room? Like, I didn't know what to do. She was hooked up to leads and tubes and IVs and all this shit. And I didn't know what to do other than to call my mom and tell her to come break into my house to get my kids' medication and then run them to me. And she made it there in like 20 minutes. I think she must have ran every red light and just left her car down in the valet and just ran up there. It's just... it was a crazy night, and when my kid's life is threatened, of course I'm going to go into mama bear mode, and of course I flipped out up there. But now when we have a problem, you know, we take her to Herman Children's. It's an amazing hospital. It is right down the street from Texas Children's. They've never once approached us about euthanizing our kid, and we don't go in there for a simple cold and then get told we got 24 or 48 hours to live or whatever. And I know it wasn't that simple, but it was an allergic reaction or a bad side effect or whatever was happening, not a life or death situation. And they're like, trach your kid or she's going to die. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to trach her, because that's no quality of life for her. She's been through enough that David and I have decided together that, you know, whatever we do from here on out is going to be about keeping her comfortable. And selfishly, we want to keep her here with us forever. But for her, just to have that surgery to prolong her suffering, so that I can hold her a little longer, I can't do that and live with myself and be able to sleep at night. So our goal is just to keep her as comfortable as we can, as long as we can, and just to love her as much as we can. And so that, you know, when all this is said and done, that, we've loved her the best we could, and we've kept her safe, and she knows that she's safe and loved. And so anyway, that was my crazy worst night of my life. And let me know what you guys would have done different, because I think about it all the time, because it really was just crazy, and I'm so traumatized from that. You know, I have so many different forms of or issues or whatever, and so I've got this PTSD, but it's not from just one event, it's from like several events, and we're going to cover all those events on here, and I'm excited to share them with you guys, no matter how shitty they are. I'm just happy that you guys sit here and listen to me, and I can vent to you guys and tell y'all the things that I've gone through, and hopefully another set of parents will see this video, and it'll save them from whatever kind of bullshit that Texas Children's is trying to sell. So Matthew Music, I don't know what to say to you other than I'm disappointed, and I'm glad I didn't listen to you, and I hope that you haven't done this to anybody else. And Texas Children's, I have no faith in you anymore. I had all the faith in the world in you to take care of my kid, and all you offered me was euthanization. So thanks for that. Anyways, I wish it could say that it doesn't get worse, but it does, and I'm going to share that all with you. All right, love you guys.